What's up, Mets fans, and welcome back to Talking Mets with Rob. Mets Talk live tonight. There is no Met game today as they have an off day flying from Houston to Miami to face the Marlins in a three-game set over the next couple of days. Unfortunately, our New York Mets got swept in the two-game series against the Astros, and to be very honest, guys, this was the first time this year that I actually felt like we're seeing the team not have the same amount of energy and the way they played. Just they looked overmatched. And not saying that they're a bad team, not saying that they're not good enough. And they played a superior team that is very, very good. Not saying that we had our best pitchers on the mound. We had Trevor Williams, and yes, Carrasco has been good, but Carrasco wasn't good yesterday. And what do you really expect from Trevor Williams? That's to be debated. So our New York Mets didn't play well in Houston at all. They didn't play their game. They didn't play their small ball enough, and it hurt them. And even considering the fact that our pitching was not good in the two-game set, basically both pitchers put us in a hole way too early, and you can't always expect the Mets offense to always come back. Even though in the first game they had an opportunity in the first game when it was only a couple of run lead for Houston, where the Mets could have came back in this ball game. They could have done some damage and got back into the ball game rather early in the first game, and even in the second game. And give a shout out to the bullpen who came in Lopez and Hunter, who kept the Houston Astros to just 5 runs the rest of the game. The Mets had multiple opportunities early part of the game, middle part of the game, and the last part of the game to have opportunities to either tie the game or take the lead, and they did not get it done. And there's no mistaking when a player or two are struggling in the game, a big spot always finds them, and that goes for the case Dominic Smith, 3 guys actually, Dominic Smith, J.D. Davis in game 1, and Escobar in both games. They find the big spot when you're struggling. And the last 2 guys you wanted up yesterday with bases loaded and 1 out was Eduardo Escobar and Dominic Smith. Escobar popped it up. Dominic Smith struck out. And the bigger thing there was the fact that you were praying that one of those guys would have finally came through. And they did not. And when Dominic Smith early on in the game got that hit the other way to left center, I was like, all right, great. He's back. He's feeling it a little bit, but I wanted to see power from Dominic Smith. Eduardo Escobar, he just needs to figure it out. He's too good of a player, too good of a track record to be playing this way. Excuse me, guys. And when it comes to Eduardo Escobar, you just want to see him get hits. Throughout his career, he's been an RBI machine. That's why it's so confusing that Eduardo Escobar is playing the way he is, because throughout his entire career, he's been a guy that would hit you 20-plus home runs, would knock in 75 to 90 RBIs in his career. It's rare that, I'm not saying he's going to bat 290, but he's a guy who bat 260 in his career, who will hit 20 home runs and knock in about 75 to 90 RBIs. Dominic Smith, for all the people that love Dominic Smith, he's had a 60-game great year. And everybody thought he was going to be the next best thing. And they started the Dom squad. They started this squad. And everybody's like, oh, Dom not getting enough playing time. Well, guess what? Before Dom got sent down to the minors, he got the opportunity when Robinson Cano was cut from the Mets. Dominic Smith was the first guy to get the opportunity at DH and first base. He was playing almost every day. And he was batting under 200. He still hasn't had a home run since last July. And the production was basically not there. The only productive game he had was the game where he had those 4 hits and I think 4 RBIs the day before they were going to make the decision on who they had to cut when they had to cut the roster from 28 to 26. And guess what? And it's no coincidence that he had a great game that day. And ever since when he came back from the minors, or right before he went down to the minors, he didn't do nothing. And it's the same issue with Dominic Smith. There is no power. You can't have a DH spot. That when we started the season, before the season, we talked about the Mets have so many options at DH that they can use anybody, and you can expect those guys to hit home runs. Anybody. Some people said, myself, I said J.D. Davis. Some people said give Robinson Cano a chance. A lot of people said give Dominic Smith that role. Well, guess what? Each one of them got a chance to get those opportunities. Cano failed. Then it was Dominic Smith. Dominic Smith didn't do anything. Couldn't even hit for power. At the very least, if you really want to look at the production in a microscope, J.D. Davis, not saying anything that's great, but he has been the most productive DH out of all the DH guys, not including Alonso. The people that are bench guys, like Cano, like Dominic Smith, like J.D. Davis. J.D. Davis, at least, I believe he has 3 home runs, and in total, I think all the DHs that you expect from Cano, Smith, Plummer, and J.D. Davis, I think in total they have 5 home runs in 70 games. That's unacceptable. You can't have a DH spot, finally get the DH spot, and not have a guy that is a power, or at the very least, is a guy that can be productive for you. I'm not saying he has to hit 30 home runs, but a productive guy. How many times has Dominic Smith come up in a big spot? J.D. Davis came up in a big spot, and Robinson Cano came up in a big spot. Too many times they failed. I'm sick and tired. I'm watching the Met game from yesterday and just watching it right now just to see if I missed anything. But when it comes down to it, you got to have production out of your DH spot. And the Mets are 19 games over 500. And they got no production from DH. They got no production from the catcher. They got no production from Eduardo Escobar. So you got 6 spots out of 9 or 3 spots out of 9 that have not done anything this year to help this team get to where they are in first place, 5 games up and 19 games over 500. It's a problem. And you can't have that, especially when you have an offense that the only amount of power that you get is from Pete Alonso. There is no other way. Yet, like a game like the game 1, a game like yesterday, when you probably needed a 3-run home run. If Alonso didn't hit that home run, you're always shocked when somebody else hits a home run because we don't hit home runs. We're not a power team. That has to change. We need somebody who is in this lineup other than Pete Alonso. When you're down 3 runs like yesterday, get a 3-run bomb to tie the game or take the lead, instead of waiting for 3 hits in a row to get those runs home, which, let's be honest, it's quicker to get the 3 runs, and it's probably easier to get that 1 home run than it is to get 3 or 4 hits to score those runs, because you need things to happen. You need the ball to find a hole. You need the defense to mess up. You need the base running to be solid. You need a lot of different scenarios for things to work out to score those runs. With 1 swing in a bat that goes over the wall, you can get 3 runs just like that. And this lack of power other than Pete Alonso is going to hurt us down the road, especially when you face teams like you saw with the Astros, when Alvarez was hitting the ball all over the damn place, when Eric Bregman was hitting home runs. They beat the Mets on home runs in this series. Look how fast they scored those runs yesterday. Boom, home run here. Boom, home run there. Boom, home run there. And it's 5-0. You can't have that. And even in game 1, they had a couple of home runs. You can't. It's very, even though the Mets scored the most runs in the league, if you look back at a lot of the games, a lot of their run totals are from winning 8-7, winning 10-5. They scored a lot of runs in one particular game to get their total run totals up. So I don't like when people say, oh, the Mets have the most or the second most runs in the league. That really means nothing. If they scored in the homestand, they scored 60 runs, and then in the West Coast trip, they scored 30 runs, but they still found a way to split a homestand. So, or split a West Coast trip. the run totals are a big misconception of what type of offense you are. Yes, it looks like how many runs you scored, but of course, when you're down 7 runs against the Phillies and you win by 2 runs or 3 runs, you come back. Well, you scored 9, 10 runs in that ball game. Of course, your run total is going to be higher. So I know people yesterday were talking about it when people were arguing about, oh, the Mets need a better hitter, more hitters in the lineup, a power hitter, and then some people come back at them saying, well, we had the most runs in the league. Yeah, but if you look at the games, some of the games that we had to come back in a ball game when we were down 4 runs, when we were down 6 or 7 runs, and we come back, that's great. The offense did it. But let's be honest, how many times did they do it with 3-run homers? No, they had to get 6, 7, 8 hits over 1 or 2 innings, and that is far and few between, because when you don't have a couple of guys hot in the lineup at the same time, those hits ain't coming in bunches. And that's the biggest problem with this team. Even though they found ways to win without Scherzer, without DeGrom, without McGill. And that's something just shows that they have the grit. They have a winning mentality. They have a manager who never gets too high when they win, never gets too low when they lose, never panics. And I think that you could see that in the team. Yesterday, and the 2 games in Houston, was the first time I seen them squeezing the bat a little tighter. It seemed like they were trying to force the issue instead of just playing baseball. And I think that hurt them, especially yesterday's game with Eduardo Escobar, who was struggling, and JD Davis, who was struggling, was sort of squeezing that bat a little bit, trying to do way too much, when even a sac fly from Eduardo Escobar possibly could have made the game a 1-run ball game, or even just a random base hit could have scored 2. And both guys were trying to swing for the fences. And you can't do that, especially in a team where you're shocked every time somebody other than Alonso hits a home run. So that's where we are right now. We got to get ready for the 3-game set in Miami. Not going to be easy in game 1. We got Taijuan Walker on the mound, but we're facing Sandy Alcantara, which is not going to be fun at all. The Mets got to get to him early, just like with any great pitcher. You got to get to them early before they find their groove in the middle part to late in the game, and then you're not scoring. So the Mets got to do extremely well getting to him early. I think the other pitchers in the rotation, the Mets took care of business when they were at Citi Field. They got to do it in Miami. So you're going to have to get through Alcantara. It's not going to be easy. You just hope Walker can give you a 6 solid innings with 1 or 2 run ball and find a way to score runs against Alcantara's. So, guys, thank you guys for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Don't forget to please hit on that like button if you're just tuning in, or if you are hanging around listening. We're going to get to everybody, say what's up, and then get to everybody's comments and concerns, questions, and opinions. Please vote on the poll. I talked about the DH. So look at the options and just let me know what, because I can't see it while I am live. Let me know the percentages. I believe it was Alvarez, Vientos, Bell, and the last one was other. So let me know what you voted, and we'll talk about that a little later in the stream. But at the moment, I want to say what's up to everybody. So once again, thank you guys. If you're new to the channel and you just subscribed to get into the stream, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Welcome to Talking Mets at Rob. Usually Mets Talk Live, I usually do on off days, or especially when we were on the West Coast trip, doing a couple of hours of Mets Talk Live just to talk about prior series, if we're in the series or the next series, and talk about everything you want to talk about during the stream. So, gonna say what's up to everybody that is in the stream right now. We got Lane, we got Steven, we got Timothy, Sean, a member of Talking Mets at Rob, Ruben, a member of Talking Mets at Rob. We got Chris NY24. We got The Real Butterscotch. We got Song Loser. And at the moment, that is it. So once again, guys, if you're tuning in, do not be shy. Say what's up in the chat. This is a free baseball forum. I know it's a Mets channel, but let's be honest, I've got a lot of – most people notice who follow my channel. During the live stream, during games, we get a ton of fans from other teams, and I think that's a credit to the lockout when I went live every day for 6, 7, 8 hours straight, just to give updates on the lockout and the meetings and everything like that. So we got a lot of other fans from other teams that I think not just appreciated that I was basically one of the only that went live during the lockout almost every day when they had meetings, so we get updates and everything like that and talk about it. And honestly, that's where I got the ton of subscribers. And obviously not all of them were Met fans because they had no way of having a live stream when baseball wasn't going on. So they had a portal or access to find out stuff, talk about it, because most of the stuff that went on during the stream, during the lockout each day was just voicing your frustration. And I was trying to give a forum, a platform for baseball fans, not just Met fans, to voice their displeasure with either the players, the owners, or both. And I think that was a big thing about why this channel went crazy during the lockout, because so many people had access and a platform to voice their opinions when, yes, you can put it on Twitter. Yes, you can put it on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever. But it's still nice when you have other fans' perspectives, not just one fan base. Because let's be honest, when I'm on Twitter, or if you're a fan of one team, you're going to follow reporters for one team. You're going to follow reporters. In this case, if you're in New York, you follow a lot of Mets reporters, a lot of Yankee reporters, to get the 1-2 on, your local sports. So you don't get access, or you don't follow, a reporter in San Diego, a reporter in Oakland, a reporter in St. Louis. In the lockout, you were getting reports from all over the country from reporters, different type of, we used to get from John Heyman in New York. You used to get somebody in Boston, somebody in St. Louis that was found out information during the lockout. So there was so much information coming through that it was easier just to go live it was a long 6, 7, 8 hours, but it went quickly because everybody was tuning in and hanging out and just, talking about baseball in general. And, it was fun. So I'm glad everybody has tuned in and keep on coming back, even though this is a Mets channel. Christian, member of Talking Mets with Rob. How you doing, buddy? Robert, how you doing? Let's get you Alvarez. That would be nice. Unfortunately, the Astros would never give him up, even though they just signed him to a 6-7 year deal worth of 100 and God knows how much money. Good for them. He's a beast. He basically single-handedly beat us yesterday. And he's a good player at the moment. He's up now from the game yesterday. I'm just watching. And you know what? You got to give a shout out to Tommy Hunter and Yohan Lopez, because after Carrasco came out with the back injury, they held it down. They held a lineup that was beating the Mets pitching staff up to 0 runs the rest of the game and gave the Mets the opportunity to come back in yesterday's ball game. So, and people keep on talking about the bullpen has been bad. They haven't been bad. They're middle of the pack in the league. So it's not that bad. Yes, Seth Lugo has his moments. Yes, Ottavino has his moments. But there is no mistake that when Trevor May went down, the bullpen got a little better. And I can't wait, until Trevor May comes back, because it only bolstered the bullpen. I honestly think he was hurt for a while, and the Mets never could diagnose what was the issue. The same thing why I think DeGrom is going to be healthy, because they finally pinpointed and diagnosed the actual problem. Because remember last year, remember last year, the Mets gave MRIs, gave x-rays. They could never find the exact reason of why DeGrom was hurt. They were saying it was tendonitis. It was fatigue. It was so much other crap. They never said nothing about bone. So either the doctors missed it, or whatever they were doing, they weren't doing it properly. They finally diagnosed. There was finally a diagnosis, because we never knew what the injury was last year. We just knew it had something to do with the right arm or the right shoulder. We didn't know. Remember, everybody was still confused of what. Remember, even some people, including myself, were like, maybe he's not the type of pitcher to pitch through any type of discomfort. Because that's the big. If there's one thing you can go after DeGrom about, it seems like he's always waiting to get in the MRI tube. Any little, any little soreness or pain, he's in the MRI tube. And they don't, not saying that he's soft, but it's kind of like he was soft. That's what people were thinking. Because we kept on saying, well, they're not diagnosing him with anything. There's not an exact injury. We had no idea what the DeGrom injury was last year. We just assumed that maybe it was a tired arm. Maybe it was just, we don't know what it was. So we thought, well, he hasn't pitched since July and hasn't thrown a ball since a month or two before spring training, and then was throwing in the little parts of spring training, and thought DeGrom was going to be fine. Well, finally they diagnosed him. Finally, we have a direct injury, and it was the stress fracture in his scapula in the right shoulder. Once you know that, now you have a course, because when you know the injury, you have the rehab that you have to do, or the surgery you might have to do. In this case, it's bone. It takes time to heal. That takes rest, and you can't do nothing about that with bone. But they finally pinpointed the injury. They diagnosed it right. They have a rehab plan and throwing regimen for that specific injury. It's easier to rehab something when you know what the injury is. That's why with Scherzer, I'm not worried about him coming back, because they knew it was an oblique injury. They knew it was an oblique strain. It was like, what was it, a grade 2 or whatever it was, grade B, whatever it was. But it was like a second. It was a pretty somewhat severe strain of the oblique, which, as we know, has been rampant around Major League Baseball. So with that, I do believe DeGrom's going to, now again, DeGrom can come back and have elbow arms or forearm problems. But at least they know that whatever the issue was this year in spring training, they found it. And that's important. And clearly he didn't have elbow issue, forearm issue, arm issue, hand issue during spring training or during any other moment. And that's good. Now, that doesn't mean nothing. In his live batting practice, he was hitting 102. He's a guy that can't dial it back for some reason. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. When you throw a slider 93 on the black and you throw 102 and you pinpoint your location, you're very hard to hit. But can he maintain that through a whole season again? He did it a few years ago when he was winning Cy Youngs, but who knows what he can do at this point. If he's healthy, he's going to be the best pitcher in baseball. Let's hope he's healthy, because now that Carrasco might miss a start or two because of his back. It's only back tightness, thank God. But if you get DeGrom and Scherzer back, this rotation is 100% different, because now you can push back Bassett to number 3, Walker or Carrasco to number 4, or Walker and Carrasco to number 5. You can keep Peterson as another lefty in the bullpen. You can put Trevor Williams back in the bullpen. So that's where we're at right now. But what I have to ask you, besides the poll, keep on voting if you haven't voted as of yet. Are you concerned that the Mets only have a 5-game lead in the NL East? Me personally, I am not concerned, because it took being 10.5 games up, starting the West Coast trip, and the Braves to go on a huge winning streak, 14 games, just to cut the lead in half. And if what people don't really want to talk about, or don't talk about at all, is this. Before the homestand of the West Coast, before the homestand that we had, where we went 6-0, before that homestand, right before the West Coast trip, we had a 6.5 game lead, right? That was in the last part of May, like the last week of May. If you take from that week of May all the way until the 23rd today, that's basically a little over a month. The Mets are in the lead in the NL East, nearly the same than what they were a month ago. So all that tells you the Mets have been playing good baseball, not great, and the Braves have had to play insane just to get back and cut the lead in half. But technically, if you really think about it, go back a month ago, around May 23rd, May 24th, they were still 5, 6, 7 games out of first place. So it took them a month just to get back to the same spot they were a month ago. So I don't want everybody to go crazy. we all talked about what the Mets needed to do in this tough late May into the whole month of June, which was going to be a hard month, one of the hardest months of the year for the Mets, mostly on the West Coast. They have to go 500 in June, because when you weather the storm in June, July, August, and September, the Mets play teams that in total at the moment are an under 500 schedule. And yes, that counts the Braves and the Phillies playing better. We got a lot of Pirates. We got a lot of Cubs. We got a lot of bad teams that we're facing. A lot of Nationals. We still got some national games that we have to make up. We still got to play the Marlins a lot. And we have 15 games against the Braves, which they're actually a team. Like I said, it's going to come down to those 15 games, but the Mets can pad those stats and pad that lead with the bad teams. So when you face the Braves, it's not life or death when you got to face those two teams, when you got to face the Braves going forward. So that's what we need to do. Weather the storm in June, which the Mets are there. I think they're a game over 500 right now. They got a week left until the end of June. We got the Marlins and we got the Astros. I think that's the last. Let me just make sure. That's the last games in June, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check so I got it right. So I'm telling you the right thing. So we got the Marlins for 3, Houston, yes. I believe that's it. Yes. So we got 5 more games in June. We got 3 more days off. 2 more days off after today in the next 5 games. So we got the Marlins for 3 and Houston for 2. If we split that right down the middle, if we go 3-2, 2-3, whatever it is, in the next 5 games, we hovered around 500 in June, even if it's a game or 2 over 500 or 5 games over 500, depending on the next 5 games. The Mets were hovering around. You don't want to be 5 games under 500, but if you were like 1 game or 2 games above or below 500 in June, we didn't have the Junes of years past. Like in 2019, we went, I think, 11 games or 12 games under 500 in June, while we were up a few games over 500 before June. The Mets, all they have to do in this, especially with the lead they had, was go 500. And I said this in June. The Braves have to go on a crazy winning streak to even get close to the NL East lead. And with all that being said, go back to the end of May, around May 26th, 24th. Look at the record and look how many games back the Braves were. They were around 6.5, hovering around 5.5 and 7 games in the last month, in May 23rd, 24th. So if you go a month later, it's basically almost the same lead the Mets had 30 days ago. So as much as people are worrying or not, the Mets weathered the storm. And that's all you needed. Christian just said it in the chat. Thank you, Christian. 11-9 for the month so far. They got 5 games left. So they played 20. How many games is that? 20 games so far. They're going to play 25 games in June. If they go in the next 5 days, let's say 13-12 or 12-13, it's still one game or 1 game over or under 500, which anybody would have took in the first week before June started. We all talked about it. We all basically agreed before the West Coast trip in June that the Mets had to go 500, especially with the lead they had. The only thing that changed was the Braves went on a crazy winning streak. If the Braves went 500 or a couple of games over 500, they would still be 8-9 games out of first place because they won 14 in a row and playing a little bit better in June, a hell of a lot better in June, because that 14-game winning streak basically bolstered their June stats. So as much as we want to think about the Mets falling apart or breaking down or choking, they're not even close. Just the Braves played outstanding baseball for a two-week stretch, and then they came back to normal. They lose the game, they win a game. They lose 2, they win 2. So if they keep on doing back and if they win 2, lose 2, win 3, lose 2, they're not gaining any ground unless the Mets go on a 6-7 game losing streak. They might gain a game here or there, but the Mets also might gain a game here or there. So the Mets are not choking. They're maintaining the month of June like we wanted them to. Now, if you're playing 500 when you got the Marlins and Pittsburgh, and we'll look through it July really quick just to give you a little bit of a chance of looking going forward. Starting July 1st, we play a lot of bad teams. We got 3 against Texas, 3 against Cincinnati, 4 against Miami. We got 3 against Atlanta, 4 against Chicago. Then we got the All-Star break. Then we play San Diego starting after the All-Star break, 3 games, 2 against the Yankees, and 3 more against the Marlins. So we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 out of 3, 19, 22. We play 24 games in the month of July. 24, if I'm not missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20, 25 games in July, right? 25 games in July. 19 out of 25 are against teams that are all under 500. And Cincinnati's one of the worst teams in the league. Miami's not that good. Texas is not that good. The Cubs are terrible. And we play more of Miami. The only teams that are really good is the Braves, Padres, and Yankees. And we play 8 games against those. 2, 5. Yes, 8 games against really good teams. Other than that, let's see, 25, so 8, 20. I can't do math at all, guys. Sorry. So we play 17 out of 25 games in July against teams under 500. That's where you pad your stats. Because if you remember the 14-game winning streak, the Braves played very bad teams. They played a National a couple of times. I believe they played Pittsburgh. The only team that they played that was good in that stretch was San Diego. Other than that, they played a lot of teams under 500, which the Mets are doing in July. So the Mets right now, they got a tough 2 games. They got 3 games against the Marlins and then 2 games against Houston. The Mets can beat the Marlins. There's no doubt about that. Alcantara is going to be a problem tomorrow, but the Mets can beat him. What they have to do, what they've done all year, is get his pitch count up. Don't strike out. Get him going. And Ruben, I know the Rangers swept the Phillies, but once again, the Phillies are not good. Just because they had a nice stretch of 10 games, they weren't any good. We all know that. Their defense sucks and their bullpen sucks. Other than Wheeler and Nola, they have no pitching. So that's why when, some of the Philly fans that love to come on the channel and say the Phillies are coming, they're not coming. They're not going anywhere. They were a terrible team in April. They're a terrible team in June. It's just they just got hot at the right time because they changed the manager, which you see all the time from teams. They get hot when the manager change of a voice, but that only lasts a couple of weeks, if that. So that's where the Mets are. If we can weather the next 5 games, even if we go 3-2 or 2-3 in the next 5, we weathered the storm. We're a game over 500 or a game less than 500. That's all you need. That is all you need in June to weather the storm, especially when the Mets, starting in June, had a 9.5 to 10.5 game lead going into the West Coast trip. That was the whole idea, that homestand, that 6-game homestand before the West Coast trip. We were talking about they need to go 5-1. They need to go 4-2. They went 6-0 and gained 4 games in the NL East to make it 10.5 games going to the West Coast. They went 5-5 on the West Coast trip, and that's all they needed to do. They're 2 games over 500 in the month of June, which can still be a very good month of June. If they take care of business, win 2 out of 3, or even sweep the Marlins, well, now they're 12-9 or 13-8. Now we're talking. Now, even if you lose the next 2 games against Houston, you still end up over 500, and you can't ask for more than that with a team that doesn't have their three top starters or three starters in their rotation, and they're throwing Peterson out there and Zappucki and Williams. You got to give a lot of credit to this team. So the next 25 games, after the last 5 games in June, 3 against the Marlins, 3 against the Astros. Pretty good chance the Mets are going to go 2-3, 3-2. I don't think they're going to do much more than that, but that they don't need to do much more than that. You go 1 game, 2 games over 500, or 1 game, 2 games under 500, no big deal. That's the month of June that everybody would have taken before the month of June, is around the 500 record. In July, like I said, 25 games in July. Only 8 of them are against teams over 500. That's 3 against the Braves, 3 against San Diego, 2 against the Yankees. 3 against San Diego are at home, 2 against the Yankees are at home. 3 against Atlanta are away. So 8 of those 25 games are against teams over 500, which are very good teams. The Braves, I consider them a really good team. The Yankees and the Padres are obviously good teams, really good teams. So you got 17 games against teams under 500. Texas, Miami, Cincinnati, all those games. If we go 12-5 against the under 500 teams, you can play around with the other 8 games against really good teams. And we can beat all those teams. Not saying that we will. If we split against the Yankees, we go 1-1 in the 2 games. Even if you take 1 game against the Braves, yes, we'll lose ground there. But again, unless the Braves go on another crazy winning streak and the Mets go on a big losing streak, they're not going to catch us because they win 2, they lose 2. The Mets win 2, lose 2. The games are not going anywhere, and it took the Braves to go on a 14-game losing streak, and the Mets play 500 on the West Coast just to get back into the race. That's why we needed that big lead going on to the West Coast, because we knew the Braves were going to get good at some point. This good in a 3.5 week stretch? Probably not. Because if the Mets, like I said, if the Braves would have went either only 5 games over 500 in June and didn't have that big winning streak, they would still be 7 or 8 games out because the Mets haven't lost an extended losing streak. This is the first time this year they lost a series. And it was a 2-game series, but the first time they lost a series, and they still haven't lost 3 in a row. Again, tomorrow could be their first time they lose 3 in a row in the season. You wouldn't like it, but let's be honest. Every team's going to go through a 3-game losing streak. It's a matter of when. You know, you're facing one of the better pitchers in baseball in Alcantara tomorrow. So there's a possibility you can lose. And just because the Mets have a 4-game lead right now. Sorry, let me just check something. The Mets have a 4-game lead right now. They don't play today. I believe the Braves play today. So they can make it 3.5 games if they win today. Yeah, the Braves won today. So it's 4. They won today, so they're 4 games. They were 4.5. Now that they won, they're 4 games. So again, the Mets take care of business. Now we know the Marlins have been trouble in years past for the Mets, but the Mets won the series against the Marlins at home. They didn't have to face Alcantara, so they got lucky, but they faced their other good pitchers in their rotation as well. So in that 4-game series. So the 3 games, even if you lose against Alcantara and you lose 3 in a row, take the next 2 and all as well. Because the Braves played well against the Giants. But let's be honest, it's not like the Braves pitched well. All these games, look, they won 7-6 today. Excuse me. They won yesterday. What was it? 5-4? 4-3 yesterday. I mean, they didn't play great. They just scored a lot of runs just like the other team. Yeah, see, they won 2-1. They lost 12-10. They won 4-3. They won 7-6. So they played a lot of big scoring games. So it's not like they beat up the Giants. You know, the Mets took 3 out of 4 at home against the Giants. Yes, they lost 2 out of 3 against the Giants in San Francisco. But the Braves, the Braves played at home. So if you really think about it, the Mets and the Braves took care of business against the Giants at home. Now, in July, let's give a perspective when it came to Atlanta's schedule. They played. This is who they played in. Excuse me. They played the Dodgers at home, and they played the Giants at home in June. And they had a lot of home games. And look, they faced Washington 3, Cubs for 3, Pittsburgh for 4, Oakland for 2, the Rockies for 4, Arizona. They played a lot of bad teams. Now in the month of July. Now they got Cincinnati for 3. They'll probably beat them. They got 4 games against St. Louis, which is not easy. They got Washington for 3. They got the Mets obviously for 3. They play a lot of games against Washington before the All-Star break. Then they play Anaheim at home. And then more of Philly, more of Arizona. But in August, this is where it gets crazy for the Braves. They got the Phillies for 2 or for 3 games. They got the Mets for 5 because they got to make up those games. They play Boston, Miami, more of the Mets, 4-game series. Houston for 3, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Colorado. So they don't have a great schedule, an easy schedule, but they got a decent schedule. And then in September, it gets crazy for them because there's a lot of West Coast games they got to play. They got to go to Oakland. They got to go to Seattle. They got to go to the Giants. They got a 9-game homestand on the West Coast. And then the rest in October, they play the Mets and the Marlins. So they got a lot of games on the West Coast trip still, and it's in the month of August. The Mets have to take advantage of their lack of good schedule in the month of July. If they do that, they should be fine. So let's see what everybody is saying. Steven want to know if I'm streaming tomorrow. Most likely I will be streaming tomorrow for the first game. I don't know about I think Saturday's a day game. Let me see. If they're day games, woohoo, go us, because I'll be ready to go for sure. Okay, so tomorrow's 6:40, so I'm going to do tomorrow's game. You know what? I might do all 3 games against the Marlins. I'll do tomorrow night. I'll do Saturday afternoon, which is 4 o'clock, and 12 o'clock start on Sunday. So I'll definitely do that. And the games when Houston plays against the Mets at home, I'll probably do the Wednesday game because I think I'm going to the I might even go to the Wednesday game. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But I'll definitely do the 3 games against Miami. So you're going to get the next 3 days of me a lot. So there we go. So let's see. Timothy, I'm doing good. Sean, how you doing? Ruben, this was a bad trip. We lost Carrasco. The bullpen did their job, but we were playing the best team out west. Agree. You know, I think people forget that the Astros are still pretty damn good. They want, you know, if it wasn't for the Yankees playing insane, they have 51 wins this year already. What are they? 51-19. The Astros are the second best team in the American League. So the Astros are a very good team. I think people forget about that. Ruben, what's up, buddy? Chris, hoping to see a healthy Max come back this weekend. Our pitching needs to stay on top of things. Yes, if the Mets are going to let Scherzer pitch in the big leagues, which I think so, pretty good chance he's going to pitch the last game of the series against Miami. So that's good. You know, we do have Walker and we do have Bassett going in this series. So pretty good chance that we can win 2 out of 3 in this series. And I think we will. The real Butterscotch says we need more consistency from this team because if they don't, they could be in trouble. Well, they've been consistent all year. You know, like I said, when they lose games, they usually get blown out. And when they're in a game, they're usually in it to the end. So I wouldn't say it's just consistency. It's just the problem is over the last week or two, there's been a lot of big spots where Escobar's up in a big spot. J.D. Davis is in a big spot. Dominic Smith's in a big spot. Or one of the catchers are in a big spot and they don't come through. And, you know, that's not an excuse, but let's be honest. When Marte's up in a big spot or Nimmo or McNeil or Alonso or even Canna, all of those guys get the job done when the pressure is on in big spots. So, yeah, consistency. I would like to see more consistency from the guys who are bad than, you know, the guys who have been doing it all year. But, yeah, you know what? You're working with the team they have right now, and I'm not sure what the poll says. I know like I said, I don't think Alvarez is coming up anytime soon, so for the people who voted, I don't think you're going to get that wish. But we'll have to wait and see with that. Once again, Butterscotch says something needs. Oh, I said that, didn't I? Oh no, he can't come up in the clutch and don't do anything. Gets paid too much to do nothing. I agree. No excuse. And Dom Smith proved why he went to the minors. I 100% agree. I was never a Dom Smith fan. If you followed my channel from day one, I was never a Dominic Smith fan. I never was. Before the year started, I know JD Davis hasn't been much better, but at least JD Davis shows signs of getting big hits and getting base hits, hitting at least a few home runs. I mean, JD Davis has more home runs than any DH that we had other than Alonso. So, and Dominic Smith hasn't had a home run since last July. So, I mean, Nick Plummer has more home runs than Dominic Smith this year. I mean, that's a problem. The DH has been a huge problem. And we didn't think going into the game or into the season that the DH spot was going to be a problem, and it has been. And until the Mets, Escobar has been a huge disappointment. Remember, the Mets got Escobar to be the protection behind Pete Alonso. That's why Escobar batted fifth a lot behind Alonso, because he was supposed to be that protection. He's the RBI machine who can bat 260, gets a lot of RBIs, and can hit you 20-plus home runs. He hasn't done any of that. He has like 2 games all year where he performed well. The cycle, and I think earlier in April. Other than that, he's been terrible. He's been the biggest disappointment other than the catcher spot, other than the DH spot. Escobar, we needed him to be the protection behind Pete Alonso, and he has not been that. That's a huge problem. And until the Mets, it's going to be hard to address it now because not a lot of teams are trading anybody. And if they are willing to trade, it's not going to be cheap. And I don't think the Mets want to give the farm for just getting a DH, a player that can be a primary DH. So it's going to be, you got guys in the minors. You got Alvarez. You got Vientos. You even got Beatty. I don't think Alvarez might be a last case scenario, probably by the All-Star break. I could see Vientos being the next on the list if Dominic Smith don't prove anything over the next week. I think Vientos is the next man up. We've wanted Vientos since last year to come up. We thought he was going to make the team this year. Obviously, the Mets thought otherwise, but that was because they had Smith, they had JD Davis, they had Cano starting the season, so they had options at DH. But I think Vientos deserves a shot at the big leagues. Give him a shot. I know he's right-handed, but who cares at this point? Give him a shot. If he performs well, great. Now we have our DH. If he doesn't, well, he has options. Send him back down to the minors and figure out if you're going to bring up Alvarez for a couple of weeks to see if he can hit. If he hits well, every now and then you throw him in the catcher spot every now and then, see how he does. And I think it's huge. I don't think people noticed this enough because they were just concerned about Scherzer's health. But Francisco Alvarez caught Scherzer's rehab assignment in Binghamton the other night. So I think that's a telltale sign that the Mets are, at least in the back of their mind, thinking about Alvarez coming up to the big leagues to either be the DH or, be a catcher every now and then. So look for Alvarez. The possibility he might come up because I think it's a big sign that the Mets made Alvarez catch Max Scherzer in his rehab assignment. I think that's a big deal that they show confidence in Alvarez catching, which has been his Achilles heel, with Scherzer on the mound. So I think that's a big telling sign for Alvarez. And if Alvarez keeps on hitting like this and Vientos is the next man up and doesn't do the job, why wouldn't you look at Alvarez as a guy who can be the primary DH and give him a spot start here and there at catcher? Yeah, and I don't think he would be on the team at the deadline either. Christian, a member of Talking Mets, what's up, buddy? Travis says Mets going fishing again tomorrow. Yes, we are. Ruben, yes, I'm glad the Phillies got swept again. They were never a team I was worried about, honestly. I wasn't. Yeah, the Marlins are a pain in the ass, but again, this is a different Mets team. I don't think they have that same mindset as in years past. So I think the Mets will be fine against the Marlins. I think they will take 2 out of 3. Well, Bernard, they only didn't hit in the last 2 games. In the homestand, they hit in the homestand. They just didn't hit the last 2 games. I mean, what are you going to do? It happens. You're playing a really good ball club in Houston who has one of the best bullpens in the league. So the Mets scored 3 runs yesterday and 2 runs the first night. It's not like they didn't have opportunities. Yesterday, they got a lot of hits. I think they had 9 hits yesterday or 10 hits yesterday. They just didn't get the job done with runners in scoring position. They had multiple opportunities to score runs. Well, yeah, wasn't Palka up during the they called him up, didn't he? He was one of the guys that they called up for like a game or one of the games. Palka might be the next man up, but he's been hitting well in the minors, so he might be the next man up as well, along with Vientos. Danny G says Josh Bell's not a bad idea. I've said that other than the big guy that we were talking about early on was JD Martinez, but because Boston found their way into a wild card spot and playing well, it looks like Martinez is going to be off the table. They're probably going to roll JD on the team and just risk losing him as a free agent at the end of the year. Josh Bell is a pretty good option. He's finally found his average in his career, because when he was with Pittsburgh, he was never an average guy. He struck out a lot, hit a lot of home runs, but wasn't hitting for average and was striking out a lot. Ever since he's been with Washington, he limited his strikeouts. He's batting 300, over 300, and is hitting a decent amount of home runs. Josh Bell is an excellent case. The only problem is, will the Nationals trade him to the Mets? Because we know they don't have a great relationship. So it might cost the Mets a little bit more to get Josh Bell, and I don't know if the Mets are willing to do that. But if we can get Josh Bell, he'll be a perfect addition to put right behind Pete Alonso. Robert, I think the Mets are looking for another starter. Again, I don't think it's going to be a Montas or a Castillo. I don't think the Mets need that. The Mets need a middle-of-the-rotation guy that's solid. Like a guy like Happ from Chicago. A guy like that who it's pretty good chance that Happ's going to be gone from Chicago. I'm sorry. Was it? I'm sorry. Was it? Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Give me a second. I wrote it down. I just forgot. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Let me just check something. I'm sorry. Not Hendricks. Either with Kyle Hendricks is an option as well. And you don't even know. Maybe was it Ian Happ is another guy that the Cubs might trade to get a couple of pieces from a team as well. But Kyle Hendricks is a good pitcher. There's a couple of guys here. Drew Smiley, we'll see. But let me just check something. I just want to see the stats of these guys. Let's see. 9 games. I'm not worried about the win-loss record. So Kyle Hendricks has a 5.43 ERA, not great at all, but there's guys that you can take that you can, there's guys that you can look at as well. So, you can look at, I think you can look at guys, third, a number 3 starter, number 4 starter, stuff like that, just to have extra depth. Also, when it comes to, like other DH spots, like I said, Ian Happ, guys like that you can look at as well. There's so many different options the Mets can go, but I don't think they're going to go after Montas or Luis Castillo, because unless DeGrom's not going to come back, then you probably need one of those guys. But DeGrom's probably going to come back right before the trade deadline, and the Mets are going to see how he is. Gives them a couple of weeks before the trade deadline to see if the Mets might have to make a big move like Montas, like Castillo in a trade deadline deal because DeGrom is hurt. If DeGrom and Scherzer are healthy, you don't need a 1, 2, or 3 because you'll have Scherzer, you have DeGrom, you have Bassett. Maybe you'll need a number 4 or number 5. Just to put a little pressure on Carrasco and Walker to continue to pitch well. Yeah, okay, Christian. Yeah, so Palka was on the taxi squad, basically. Yeah, I saw Montas pitch the gem today. Again, what I think people are forgetting is that if you go after Montas, if you're going to go after Castillo, you're going to have to pay a lot. You're going to have to give a lot. Are you willing to give up Mauricio and Vientos and probably a Dominic Smith along with probably a lower level prospect as well. So you can probably have to give 3 prospects plus Dominic Smith to get these guys, because I think both of these guys are under contract for at least another year. So there's a lot that you're going to have to give up. Are the Mets willing to do that when, let's be honest, it's not really the pitching that's been the huge problem this year. It's been the DH spot that's been a real big problem. So I rather use the majority or at least a big deal to get a big bat. And then you can, maneuver to get bullpen arms and another late rotation type of guy starter. Well, Daniel Bard is not, even CJ Cron, he's another one. When I was in Colorado, he killed the Mets. CJ Cron is another guy that you might be able to get from the Rockies for probably a mid-level prospect, or even give them either a JD Davis or a Dominic Smith with a lower level prospect. CJ Cron can mash, hit a lot of home runs, no doubt about it. So we'll see. Yeah, Quintana is definitely going to be on the trade market. He's another guy that, let's see. I think I got a tweet. Let's see, John. Oops. Give me a second, guys. I got a tweet. But yeah, Quintana is definitely going to be a guy that is going to be on the trade market. Okay, so John Heyman, here we go. We're starting already. Mets have checked in on Castillo and presumably other starters with so many rotation injuries, but a hitter would be a nice 2 out in a seller's market. 2 to 3 options listed in here. So let me open it up at the New York Post article. Let's see what it says, guys. And Robert, thank you for that John Heyman information to tell me about the tweet. So here we go. Mets are among a few teams showing early interest in Red starter pitcher Luis Castillo. They presumably have interest in other starters as well, including his teammate Tyler Mahle. We talked about this earlier in the year, who they talked about in the winter, and A's starter Frankie Montas, who they've scouted too. Word is the Twins, who acquired Sonny Gray from Cincinnati and ultra-aggressive Padres, who wouldn't seem to have rotational needs, also are in on Castillo, who has another year before free agency and should draw interest from other teams. In another interesting twist, while the Mets entered Thursday tied atop the MLB with the Yankees with 353 runs, they may be in the market for a hitter too. The trade market isn't expected to be stocked with bats, but Josh Bell and Andrew Benintendi. Benintendi, I don't think is an option for the Mets. He's more of an option for the Yankees, but Josh Bell obviously is an option for the Mets, are among a select few who would help. The Mets were seen early as being among the NL teams best equipped to fill DH, as they had multiple candidates, but with Robinson Cano long gone, Dom Smith hovering over the Mendoza line, and JD Davis OPS below 700, there's room for improvement. All right, so that's what he said. Let's see. So the Mets would have loved a shot at Soto, but that's not going to happen. But a couple of his teammates, Bell and Nelson Cruz, may be among the best options in a market where overpays are expected with a very limited supply. So there we go. So that is the tweet and the report from John Heyman. The Mets have checked in on Luis Castillo, and we're already scouting Montas. So it's a possibility. Maybe they might know more about McGill than we think. If McGill's not back, now you don't really have to fill a hole. But if you have Castillo or Montas in that rotation, either Walker or Carrasco is going to get bumped. So, Robert, once again, thank you about that John Heyman tweet. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Dodie, what's up, buddy? Everything is good. Thank you. Hopefully everything is well with you too. Yeah, Chris, when people just think, they're going to go after just Luis Castillo or Frankie Montas, also look at the bullpens of those teams too. Maybe the Mets can add a bullpen arm with Luis Castillo or with a big bat for a DA spot. It could be a big bat and a rotation a bullpen arm in the same deal. Like CJ Cron and one of the bullpen arms in Colorado, or Luis Castillo and a bullpen arm, or a Josh Bell and a bullpen arm. There's so many different ways the Mets can do about it. I'd rather do one big deal so you don't have to give, because if you do a a 3-player prospect for 1 player. Now you got to go to another team who probably going to want 2 prospects. So in total, you're going to give 4 or 5 prospects to 2 teams for 2 players. At least in a 1-trade deal, you might give 2 prospects and a Dominic Smith or a JD Davis for 2 players, a big bat or a big arm with a bullpen arm, something like that. So let's hope that, like I said, I think the Mets are going to make an early trade because it's looking like they need to, depending on if it's a bat or an arm. Yeah, Danny, I like CJ Cron a lot. He's a guy that can hit power anywhere. And he's let me just check his stats really quick. Give me a second. Let me just pull up the stats. Obviously, he's playing for Colorado right now, so the stats are going to be a little inflated, but not much. So he played in how many games? 69 games this year. So he played almost every game for the Rockies. He's a right fielder or first baseman, but he's mostly a DH too. He's batting 300, 17 home runs, 81 hits with a 2.2 WAR. Let me just check his other stats. He has 52 RBIs, which is very close to Pete Alonso. 15 doubles, 17 home runs, 52 RBIs. Struck out. He had 295 plate appearances. He only struck out 78 times, so he's not a strikeout guy. He's an average guy, so that's a perfect guy. Let me check his OPS. On base percentage 347, which is pretty good. OPS is 900, so that's basically a perfect batter, a perfect offensive player that the Mets look for. They look for on base guy, high OPS over 800, and a 300 hitter with power. That's the perfect guy for the Mets. CJ Cron would be a good addition. I don't think he's going to cost much. I don't know if it's only a 1-year deal, but let me check with CJ Cron his contract. So he's having a great year. So he has 1 more year left on his contract in 2023. He's making $7.25 million. So he's not making a lot at all. The Mets can easily pick up that money. So you're trading for him for a half a year this year and a full year next year, which will be perfect to fill that DH spot with no issues at all. So that's a guy the Mets can look at. Maybe they are looking at him. And I'm not sure what the Rockies' bullpen situation is, but you can always look at a bullpen arm as well in that scenario. Bernard, we need pitching bad. Yeah, we do, for sure. Well, I think Escobar is going to be sitting a little bit because Guillermo's been playing well, and as soon as McNeil comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if Escobar takes a few days off. Yeah, I don't like Mal very much. Again, if you can get him as a 4th or 5th starter, all right, I'll take him because you always expect your 4th or 5th starter, to have a 4 ERA or something like that, which most pitchers are in the back end of the rotation. Delmar, I don't think we're gonna have a second half collapse. I don't see we're not collapsing. If you were here earlier in the stream, the Mets played 500 and it took the Braves to go through a crazy winning streak just to get back to 4 games now, which it was in the end of May. So all they did in the next month was get back to a 4-game lead. So, unless the Mets go on a long losing streak and the Braves win 4 or 5 in a row, the Mets are not choking. This is not the team that you thought of last year, which had no pitching at all. So I think it's a big difference. Don't get me wrong. The Braves are a really good team, and I do think the Braves are going to make the playoffs. But it's not like the Mets are playing terrible. They're not. They're playing good. I mean, they're 11-9 in June. I mean, that's not bad considering who they played. Martin Perez, the lefty from the Texas Rangers. That's a good option as well. Robert, that's a good point. Because you'll have multiple pitchers. I don't know if the Mets would put them in a deal. Maybe Walker. I think the A's would take Walker because he's on an expiring contract. That might be an option, and Carrasco is as well. I would think they would want the younger pitcher in Walker, because he's cheaper than Carrasco. But I guess you would put him in a deal, but that's if the team wants him. I mean, I think you would have to, but again, if you don't trade those 2 guys, you have more depth than you need, and you can fill in for an injury just in case. Franmil Reyes is another option as well. There's a decent amount of bats. You just got to see who is willing to give those guys up as well. Trey Mancini is another one. Again, he's a fan favorite in Baltimore. I don't know if Baltimore would do that. I'd love Trey Mancini. I mean, I don't think he had a great year so far. Let's check. Wrong guy. So let's see with Trey Mancini. What is he this year? The only time I see Trey Mancini play is when he's playing against the Yankees. So he's played in 62 games, so almost all of them. He's batting .286 with 7 home runs and 27 RBI. I mean, you can look at it. All right, it's not great power numbers. .286, not bad average. But the Mets have a lot of those guys, right? I mean, not saying that Trey Mancini wouldn't be good in this lineup. Is it because the lineup is not great in Baltimore? That's why he's not getting a lot of pitches to hit. That's a possibility. He's 30 years old. I think he'll be fine. But, I mean, that's a guy that you probably, he's a fan favorite there. He's a homegrown talent. So it might cost a little bit more to get Trey Mancini for the production. But he's not a bad option. Cruz could be a temporary option, Christian. Honestly, he hasn't been good this year. But, again, he's a guy that could hit for power. If that's a cheaper option, if you can't get Josh Bell yet, maybe you can work a little bit of good faith with the Nationals with Nelson Cruz. You don't have to give nothing up for Cruz and see what happens. Maybe it's lightning in a bottle, and maybe you get in good faith with the Nationals where if you trade for Cruz now and you don't have to give up nothing, you'll take your chances with Cruz. And when the trade deadline comes around, if Cruz is not doing it, you can always, cut him or just leave him on the bench as a bench guy and try for Josh Bell. That's another option as well. Well, Danny, with Bieber in there and Reyes, it's going to take more than those guys. Dom, JD Davis, and Vientos, the only guy that anybody would want to keep is Vientos. I don't see much reason why the Guardians have been playing well. I think they're in the wild card section right now. So run right now. So I don't think they're trading anybody at this point. Yeah, Fulmer is another option. I think they talked about that yesterday in the stream. He's a very big option as well. He's been very good in the bullpen, not great in the as a starter, but he's been very good. I think he had a 2.37 ERA in the bullpen in like 25 games, so he's been very good. So maybe it might be a nice reunion for the Mets. Obviously, not they traded Fulmer for Cespedes, but it might be a nice addition to the bullpen. Well, let's see if they can get Ivy for the Knicks. What's up, Joe? Yeah, Ruben, like I said, we weathered the storm with all the injuries and the pitching rotation. Remember, we didn't have Scherzer for a month. We haven't had DeGrom all year. McGill was out 4 weeks before he got hurt again. So we're running on Chris Bassett as our ace for almost a month and a half. And we're still keeping the lead. And, I know Delmar talked about the Braves. The Braves have played well, but they still haven't caught the match yet. And as good as the Braves have been, they're 4 games out, as much games as they were in the middle of May. So, and it took them a month to do it. That's why we needed that big lead, because we had the injuries and that West Coast trip. Jose Ramirez signed him to a long-term deal, so he's not going anywhere, unfortunately. Joe, I don't think the Guardians are going to sell. They're playing very well this year. And you know what? They're in a if I'm not mistaken, I think they're in a wild card playoff spot right now. Let me see. Because, the AL is very bad, and there's not a lot of good teams. So a team like Cleveland can actually make the wild card spot. Let's see. Yeah, Cleveland's leading. I'm sorry. That's just wrong. Cleveland's winning the division right now. They're tied. They're 7 games over 500. So Cleveland ain't going anywhere. They're probably going to make the playoffs, so they're not trading anybody. # CJ Cron to the Mets. I love it. Let's start it. Yeah, I know there was a report about Epler was a big reason why Ohtani went to the Angels, but Ohtani was always going to the West Coast. It was just a matter of it was going to be the Dodgers, the Giants, or the Angels. He's not coming. He's not leaving the West Coast. I doubt it very much. Like I said, who wouldn't want Ohtani? Again, I don't want him as a pitcher. I want him as a hitter. So that would be awesome if the Mets can find a way to sign him. But there is no way Adi Moreno is letting Ohtani leave. He's a money making machine for that team. He ain't going anywhere. Robert, JD Martinez is not going to be an option because Boston is in a playoff spot right now. Right now, they're only a half a game out of a playoff spot. So, I'm sorry, no, I'm a liar. They're second. They're the second wild card team. So they're 8 games over 500. So they're probably not going to trade JD Martinez unless they fall apart in the second half. Suarez from Seattle, I don't think it's happening. They just traded for him in Winker. I don't think it's going to be – they're going to get rid of him as of yet. Suarez, he's okay. You know, he's a power guy, but he strikes out a ton, and I don't think the Mets like that type of hitter. Jaden Ivey, he's a good player. And, I know he has signs of John Morant, but he's not a good ball handler. He gives a lot of turnovers away, but you can work on that. Yeah, Randall's going to be a Nick for a while. Yeah, Danny, I wish that would be Ohtani. Like I said, I think Ohtani's going to become a free agent just to see, but I don't think Marino's going to miss him. Oh, going to lose him. Mets versus Guardians World Series. Well, that would be fun for Lindor, no? So, but yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, guys, what the Mets need to do is continue what they have been doing. Except for the 2 games against Houston, their offense is what their offense is right now. They get the power from Alonso, and they produce runs. They manufacture runs. They got to continue to do that, and I think they will. But it never hurts to have another power bat. And the sad part is that we were supposed to have. Sorry, let me get this crap out of here. You got to have that extra power bat, that protection behind Pete Alonso. Because if you don't, what's the point? The teams are going to walk Pete Alonso and in big spots, they're going to walk him. And now you're going to have to rely on Escobar or Kana, which Kana's fine. But again, you'd rather have Alonso in a big spot than any other player in your roster. So that's the problem that we're having. If you had somebody who's dangerous behind Pete Alonso, they're not going to walk or they're not going to pitch around Pete Alonso. They're going to have to go after him because they don't want to face the guy after him. And when you don't have that, well, teams are going to pitch around Alonso. This is exactly what Houston did in the 2-game set. Did you see, besides the 1 home run I think Alonso hit, other than that, they were throwing everything off the plate and seeing if he fished for that pitch. They weren't throwing balls over the plate. They were making other guys beat them. And that's what happened. That's what happened yesterday. They weren't pitching. They were throwing the ball everywhere else off the plate to Alonso, and they were letting Luis Guillorme, Dominic Smith, and Eduardo Escobar trying to beat you. And that's it. Yeah, you know why Kevin Durant requested a trade out of Brooklyn? Because they're not signed. They don't want to sign Kyrie Irving, and I don't blame them. Get rid of him. See ya. What they should have never done is never fired Atkinson and kept their young players. Now, Danny, that's something that you can see the Rockies taking. CJ Cron, you take the money off of the Colorado Rockies, and Daniel Bard, who's been very good this year. You give, I don't know about Mauricio. I don't even think you have to give that much. I think you can take Mauricio out of that and give Dom, JD, and Vientos. And I think that's a perfect trade for them. Maybe you might want to keep Vientos, and if you want, you could put Dom and Mauricio in that deal. That's a big deal because I think CJ Cron is very good. Is his home run rate a little inflated? Yeah, what did he get? 2 or 3 home runs? So, more from Colorado, but he's a power hitter. He always has been a power hitter. But what I like, he's a 300 average. He has a 350 on-base percentage, a 900 OPS. That's something that the Mets like. So that's a guy also. But that's not a bad trade minus Mauricio. Yeah, Durant, Irvin is a head case. We all know that. And listen, if Kevin Durant wants to trade, if I'm the Nets, I would trade him in a heartbeat because what they would have, if they trade him tonight during the draft, the draft, you can get picks in this draft, and you could probably get a young player or two for Durant. So I would do it. Hey, look, the Nets screwed up. They got rid of the coach Atkinson, who was a really good coach, and got rid of basically all the young players that developed for a head case in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And if they trade Kevin Durant, and now they got another head case in Ben Simmons. So I don't, you know what? The hell with Kevin Durant. If he doesn't want to do it on his own, the hell with him. That's the way I see it. Yeah. Bell would be a perfect guy. Bell, CJ Kroon would be a perfect protection behind Pete Alonso for sure. Well, Chris Bryant hasn't been doing great, you know. But then again, there is nobody in that lineup to help him. So that's the other issue too. And he is declining. There's no doubt about that. Jose Abreu would be a nice DH spot. I don't think the White Sox are going to give up just yet. I mean, they're only behind a few games or half. They're tied with the Guardians. I think they're going to take over the Guardians in the division. So I don't think they're going to do much unless they really do fall out of it. You know, we need Tony La Russa to make a couple of more stupid moves during the excuse me during the season. So once again, guys, don't forget to please hit on that like button. I'm going to be with you for another 10 minutes, and then I'll call it a night. And I'll see you guys the next couple of nights for the Mets games. Let me just double check something. I just want to see something. Awesome, guys. 28 likes, and we had about 30 in the chat, so you guys did great today with the likes. I'm just checking Twitter really quick just to see what's going on, if there's any other baseball news. Oakland Athletics fan just called the Athletics bullpen the blow pen because they just gave up the W from Montas, who pitched a gem. Let's see. Yeah, and I know this ain't baseball related, but with Kevin Durant, there was a report that says the trade package for Kevin Durant would be the biggest package in NBA history. Well, yeah, you're going to give a couple of first-round picks, which the Nets really need, and they would probably get a young player along with those picks as well, a young good player. So it would be a lot of picks, which the Nets need, which they traded everything to get Simmons and Harden and Kyrie and Durant. So let's see what else is going on around Twitter. Let's see. Nothing else baseball wise. All right. So let's finish it up strong with a couple of comments. And I don't play thank you. I know, like I said, some people like really sit back and enjoy the stream and don't hit the like button. We see that during the live streams during the games. But like there's a ton of people. Like I would have 260 people in the stream and I have 100 likes, which is not bad. But there's some people that just chill. And I'm not gonna, that's fine. You can do what you want. It's your decision, your life, your day. But yeah. But it's kind of funny that a lot of people are a little stingy with the likes. And I notice on the channels, they get more likes with the same amount of viewership. And, they just get people who hit the like button. That's all. Hunter Green. That's funny, Ruben. Villar for Dom. I mean, Villar would be fine, but he's a guy who's very reckless on the base paths, which I don't think Buck Showalter needs on this team. We're a very good base running team, very good, defensive team. Villar, like I said, I thought the Mets were going to sign Villar as a bench guy. Like I said, I wouldn't be against it, but Villar can hit for power. But I mean, like I said, would I give Dom for Villar? I think you can use Dom in a bigger trade. So I wouldn't use him for, a bench player in VR. You could probably give a middle of the road prospect for VR. KD to the Mets. He might hit better than Dom, Dady, and Plummer. So once again, guys, got about 5 minutes left. So Andy Martino was talking about a deadline move. Let's listen.
Put up the title in the front office in terms of really going for it and doing whatever they can do.
And that is why I'm not worried about this team prioritizing winning. That is what the owner says. Win a World Series. Hard to
This
do
is
it,
baseball night in
but
New
they're
York,
gonna
by
go
the
out there
way.
And do everything they can to try to make that a realistic possibility. Shohei Ohtani has been
All right. So we missed a little bit of it. I missed the opening of that, but what can you do, right? Yeah, Ruben, I wouldn't keep Dom in the minors because I think that only I think Dom's value is Dom's value. I think teams know what he is. I think there's going to be a team out there that think Dominic Smith can hit in the big leagues. And they know that you can put him at first base every day and he's a great defensive first baseman. So no doubt about it, Dominic Smith is going to be in a big deal. But I wouldn't waste him on a guy like VR. I would use Dominic Smith as a guy who's still cheap, who a lot of teams still like Dominic Smith. They think he could still hit. They think he probably needs to play 150 games just to see the type of offensive guy he could be. I don't believe that, but let them believe that. And they could see him as an everyday first baseman. So you got to look at teams that probably need a first baseman and probably need a guy that can play every day for cheap. Colorado, who already spent a ton of money on Chris Bryant, they're probably looking to shed payroll already. So Dominic Smith is an option there. If you get CJ Cron, they're going to need a first baseman. So you can trade him Dominic Smith and maybe a mid-level prospect and Bard, as Christian said earlier. So that's what we think we have to do. Committee, do you think the Mets will bring up Inciarte anytime soon or wait for September? I mean, is he really needed? I guess you can say that. You could put him, but who would you could send down Nick Plummer and bring up Inciarte. He's a great defensive guy, play all three positions. He's not a great hitter. He got speed. I would do that. But, I mean, is he going to win the Mets a lot of games? But, again, I wouldn't be against it. Nick Plummer hasn't really done anything when he got his opportunity except for the first time he came up, the first couple of games. Other than that, Inciarte is a good veteran guy. I wouldn't go again. I wouldn't go against it though. Robert, I don't know if Buck needs any help. Trust me. Hey, listen, I would love to be a reporter or a radio guy or I would do play-by-play or I'll be a beat reporter. I could do that. Yeah, Joe, exactly. He's mostly a depth guy just in case if Nimmo goes down or something. Hey, I would take a front office shot. Look, I'll be an advisor. You give me $50,000 a year. I'll be the cheapest administrator in the Mets organization. Shoot, I work overnight at my job anyway, so I can work during the day for the Mets. Let's go. Make it happen. Put the word out. Let's go. I actually put in for because Major League Baseball always has job listings on their website. If you guys are interested, so they do some type of remote stuff as well. I apply for social media content. Obviously, I'm doing social media here. It's social media basically. You updating the scores, or you'll be like an update guy on like injuries or trades and stuff like that. And you sit in it's like a man cave. And you watch all the games and you do updates on games and stuff like that. Like you'll be scheduled to watch a couple of games and you'll be the main social media guy for Major League Baseball, MLB.com or MLB's Twitter feed. And you can actually you'll watch those couple of games and you tweet about them. If something's going on like a no-hitter, you put that on MLB's Twitter account. Stuff like that, and you do updates. So I did do that. See if I get it. You never know. There you go, Ruben. Send him a tweet. Let's go. Do you think Moustakas would be a good option or Drury? Moustakas. I think he's getting up there in age, honestly. I mean, that would be an interesting move considering, if you get Luis Castillo, if you want to go after Luis Castillo, right, you can take on the money of Mike Moustakas, and you might not have to give a lot of big prospects for Luis Castillo. That's why when we were talking about trades earlier, we didn't really bring that up. But we have an owner that would take on a bad contract, which Moustakas is a bad contract, to get a big arm or a big bat in that trade, and you don't have to give up major prospects. Like the mistake with the Cano and Diaz trade was the Mets took on Cano's contract and traded their best prospect. That's not going to happen. If Cincinnati wants to shed payroll, I think Moustakas is making. I think he got a decent contract. Let's see his contract. So he's making $16 million this year and has another. He's making $18 million next year, and then a club option for 2024. So we can eat that contract and pay less than prospects to Cincinnati to get Luis Castillo. That might be an option as well. So that's a good point, Robert. Drury, maybe. That might be an option as like a solo deal. But if the Mets take on Moustakas' contract, you're not going to have to give up 2+ prospects to get Luis Castillo if you take on his entire contract. Tell Cincinnati, hey, we'll take the entire contract on Moustakas, and we'll give you one top prospect. Other than that, we're not giving you much more. That could be an option as well. No, I don't have a degree in social media marketing, or I do have a health care management degree and computer science degree, but I don't have social media. But again, social media, you can learn. You don't need a degree for that. Honestly, you can just learn how to do it. Anybody can do a YouTube channel. You just got to know how to do it. Like if you look at my first couple of YouTube videos, the quality and the content was terrible compared to what it is now. It's 100 times better. So you learn. Yeah, exactly, Ralph. They do need power bats. We were talking about it earlier. Josh Bell, CJ Cron, Drury, Mike Moustakas, guys like that. Especially look at big bats with bad contracts on bad teams, where the Mets could take on a bad contract to get a big bullpen arm or a big bat or a big arm as well. So we got to look at that as well. And that, Robert made a great point. Was it Robert? I believe it was. I'm sorry if I forgot. I think it was Robert who talked about Moustakas, who's making $16 million this year, $18 million next year, and a club option for 2024. That's a scenario where the Mets can take on a bad contract to get Luis Castillo at a reasonable package. Like maybe you don't have to trade Mauricio, but you don't have to give Mauricio and Vientos and another top 20 prospect to get him. If you do it solo, you take on a contract, Cincinnati would love that. And maybe you only have to give one type prospect instead of two. And that's a situation where the Mets can get a big bat and a big arm in the rotation. Plus, still have enough minor leaguers to try to get a bullpen arm or two during the deadline. So we'll see if the Mets can do that as well. All right, guys, so we're going to call it a quit. Yeah, exactly with college, you can go in any time. But like I said, I went early on and I hated it. And then I went over the last 5 or 6 years, I got two degrees. So that's how it goes. So that's how it is at the moment. Christian, Moustakas is an a-hole. But when he's an a-hole on your team, you love him. He was the big part of the Royals winning the World Series in their run to this World Series. He was a pain in the ass against us. So he's a guy that you want on your team. You just don't want to play against him. But once again, guys, join me over the next 3 days against the Marlins. Every day I'll be going live. Tomorrow night at 6:40, Saturday at 4 o'clock, and 12 o'clock on Sunday. So I'll catch you guys then. Thank you guys for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Again, Mets Talk Live happens on off days during the Mets season, and when they're on either a rain out or something like that, when they can't play a game. Mets Talk Live will be live at 5 o'clock during any day went during the Mets season. So once again, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Everybody have a good night. See you guys over the next 3 days. See you guys tomorrow night. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. Have a good night, guys.